This is Young-Kwang Kim. We talked with Young-Kwang once before when you were like brand new at Brookfield CRC. Like your first week,
Hmm.
you didn't even have any books in your office yet. We were just in your
Yep, it was
office,
completely empty.
and
Hmm.
it's got stuff in it now, so now you're a real pastor.
For sure.
Yep. What you been working on, Young-Kwang? How's it been settling in over there at Brookfield CRC?
It's been going well. I finally got ordained in March. So before that happened, I was kind of working toward that, right? I took a classical exam. I had to submit a couple of sermons for that, and I got ordained in late March. And since then, I've been kind of working on my. I guess I've been trying to get a sense of the culture in Wisconsin and culture at Brookfield CRC. We always talk about the American culture or the Christian culture, but let's be real, like each culture at each local congregation is a little different. And I've been sensing a lot of that here at Brookfield CRC coming from the Metro DC area. So that I am trying to wrestle with that. I'm trying to figure out what the youth is going through, what the church is going through, and how they all play in their Christian walk.
You mentioned how it might be different kind of area by area. Do you find like when people talk about millennials or Gen Zers and these kind of broader categories that we put people into, I guess it's a global thing. At least it's, all of the states when they talk about that type of group. Do you find those types of groupings useful at all, or is your local context just so unique?
I mean, they are useful in a sense, right? I mean, it's age groupings, and because you have certain big events that happen when you were growing up, so that kind of shapes how you think and how you view things. But I mean, so let's take millennials for as an example. Like, how would you define the millennials? Like, what is a starting point and what is the end point?
To my knowledge, the reason I asked this question is because I don't care so much for the distinctions. But
Yeah,
I think millennials go all the way up to like age 40 something, 45 maybe.
yeah. Like, I mean, I heard that, and that's my question.
And
Like,
you
so
don't
let's
start,
say,
yeah, you don't start categorizing people till they're 18. And I think they're still on millennials. There might be one new one recently. So like 18 to 45 is supposed to be one group of the same kind of people.
yeah. Let's, yeah, like say you were 45, like you're on that borderline, right? So what is the difference between you and a person who's 46, right?
Right.
So
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we
yeah.
start when we start group things like that, I mean, it's just like, so it's just an abstract concepts that we kind of work with, and we kind of generalize people based on what the labels were given to them. Um, yes, so it can be helpful, sure. Like, I mean, millennials, I consider myself as a millennial, and we do have this common characteristics about our group. So like postmodern thinking, this relative truth, that idea is those are very prevalent among people in my group, I guess. But it is not unique to millennials. You see that happening in Gen Z. Some of the boomer generations definitely carry that, So yeah, I don't think it's unique. It's a helpful thing, but if we just use that as like the defining, factor, or defining what have you, that's going a little too far for
Yeah.
me, at least.
Yeah. It's funny how maybe it bothers me because I'm a millennial too, and people don't have many nice things to say about millennials. So maybe that's why I reject the idea so much. But it's funny to me how much church people like
Oh,
those
excuse me.
categories.
They're working on the roof, so you might hear some banging
That's
happening.
fine. As long as you don't get like raptured over there and then I'm just stuck.
Um,
But it's funny to me that church people like that as an identity for people. And it's like, our markers aren't how old we are. Our markers are in Christ or not, right? I mean, that should be the identity
Yeah.
marker.
Yeah.
We get so hung up on these man-made categories.
Yeah.
But anyways, so
I mean,
go ahead.
even in Christianity, we have those like markers, right? Like we all say that we are all in Christ and we are marked by, the blood of Christ and all that. But all these like personality tests we take or the spiritual gifts assessment, like you are a giver or you are an administrator or you are a teacher. Yeah. So once you start defining people with those categories, we just, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not a huge fan of those things either. I have to remember that it is really useful starting place for some people who need kind of help discerning what gifts they have. But it's just frustrating how like off the wall some of the, like, you're a cheerful hospitality worker. And it's like, what does that mean? I don't know. Like, I smile when people come over. So I don't know how helpful those things are for me either. Anyway, so
recently I had a conversation with somebody. I asked that person to do something, right? Like whether or not that person was interested in doing something. And the response that I got was that that person was not, a certain thing according to the spiritual gift assessment that person took years ago. And I'm just like, that test was so that so that you would kind of grow in other areas. Like that wasn't the defining thing. It was to make you self-aware so that you could kind of grow in the faith. So sorry, I can go on and on about
that's all this. I mean, that's all kind of setting up this question. So you've been there for like 9 months or something like that now, close.
6, 7,
and
7.
And it's really important to get to know your congregation or the local body, the local ministry context, the community. What have been some useful ways that you've gone about getting to know the culture and the people and that kind of thing?
Yeah. As you know, or I think, we have a school right next door. And a lot of our students go there. So I've been kind of showing up to their school events, just to show my face around. And I started doing the profession of faith class. So in that intimate setting, I've been getting to know some of the students here. So that's been very helpful. I've been trying to be available. I've been just making some terrible pastor jokes after service. I'm not sure if that's been helpful for my cause or not, but at least I'm trying, right? So I've been just trying to, I've been trying to make myself available for all sorts of conversation, all sorts of things. And I recently helped somebody move, and I preached that Sunday. So I was still in my preaching suit, whatever you. But like just by showing up, that I was, willing to be there. I think, I think that's just a good way to let people know that you are about this personal relationship. That, my pastoral authority is not given to me, but I'm trying to earn that authority.
Why is that useful? Why is it useful to understand the community, get to know the people, to earn the title of pastor or shepherd? I mean, why do you need to do that? Why not just show up and say, I've got an education, listen to me? You know what I mean?
I mean, it is helpful because it's the trust thing, right? So, I mean, it might be a terrible example, but let's take politicians for an example. They have the title of being a senator or representative, what have you, but just because they have the title doesn't mean that we all trust them, right? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that we feel like they haven't done a good job, right? So they have either lost their trust or lost our trust, or they've never earned our trust to begin with. So earning that trust is really, really important, because when there is an important project that I want to present or really want to push for, that trust will bring people along, right? It's going to be helpful for our church to maintain that unity and sense of community when there's a challenge or there's a project that we need to work on. So that's kind of, I guess I'm prepping myself for whatever comes in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. The work of discipleship demands trust, and it's a careful thing. It's funny you bring up trust. It seems to me, and maybe you agree or disagree, but it seems like our culture today is, what's the opposite of trust? Especially cautious about who to trust and what to believe. As someone who's new to an area, and you don't have to bury the people of Brookfield, but have you sensed like a difficulty kind of earning that, or have people been pretty receptive to you?
Generally speaking, they have been very receptive.
Yeah.
But nobody has said anything in my face, but I'm sure there are people who are kind of still skeptical about who I am or where I stand and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I got a lot of work to do. It's funny that how'd you define the opposite or the antonym of trust? What was your definition again?
I think I said cautious or careful about who they trust.
I almost think that it is like indifference, or almost this like not really caring what other people have to say or what other people do. Because our culture is so individualistic, and I keep going back to postmodernism.
Yeah, I was going to say
this
that.
relative truth, and then that individual expression, or what is it called? Expressive individualism. That notion is so strong in our culture. You can say whatever you want. I don't have to believe you because I get to define who I am. So like, that's what I mean by like indifference, or not really caring what other people have to say or what other people do, because you kind of only care about yourself. That is, I don't mean to, come down on like, millennials or Gen Zs or any people like that, but like, it's just something that we see in our culture. I mean,
I used to say, people would ask me what the hardest part about youth ministry was, and I used to say relative truth. Postmodernism is the biggest obstacle to doing effective youth ministry, because no matter the presentation, no matter the biblical facts, no matter the depth of study, all a student has to say is, good for you, not good for me.
That's your truth.
Yep, your truth, not mine. And any argument is voided. And I'm typically a logical, like mathematical, process-driven person. So it's like you lay out the systematic theology, and you're like, see, it all hangs together. Like, well, for you it does. Like, what? Well, no, in truth it does, because it's true. But if truth is relative, it's hard to connect with somebody.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just like unique to our youth culture today. I recently had a conversation with 60-some-year-old woman, nice lady, faithful lady, goes to a non-reformed church. And the conversation was about how we understand infant baptism and why we do it and all of that, right? So I kind of gave her the classic, the visible sign of invisible grace. And we were like putting the emphasis on the promise of God rather than what we do as human beings, right? So I gave her all of that. And then after my presentation, she summarized my entire thing by saying, so you're claiming salvation for that child? I'm like, no. That's not what I said. So what I'm trying to say is like, people just kind of have they have already defined
Sure.
what the other person's going to say or what the other thought world would present, and they're not willing to listen today. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have in our culture, not just the youth, but in our American culture that we see in the American society as a whole. Although, again, every context is different, but
Sure.
the common culture is that people are just not willing to listen. They come to a space of dialogue, wanting to have a monologue, if that makes sense. There is no exchange. It's just shouting match, and they're just talking past one another. It saddens me.
Yeah. It's kind of the state of political discourse to the point where you wonder, like, is this repairable some days? But it's striking for me that you bring that up, you know, that people only listen with their straw man fallacy already set up to knock down when it's their turn to talk. And I wonder, you know, where I'm guilty of that with some of the conversations happening at Synod, you know, pretty set in some of my convictions, but am I willing to consider somebody's presentation, somebody's logical theology, if they could lay it out for me? Would I consider it, or would I just, do I have my straw man already set up for when it's my turn?
Yeah. And yeah, you absolutely, I really appreciate the last comment, because I'm pretty sure I have a huge log in my own eyes too, right? So the purpose of having a dialogue is so that we can kind of point out the logs in each other's eyes.
Yeah. Right.
So whatever the conversation at Synod, and I've been following it pretty closely. There are moments where it's just beautiful, right? Differences kind of come together and they come to a decision. And although some people do not necessarily agree with that decision, they kind of, submit to the authority of the church. But leading up to that point, you see a lot of talking past one another kind of stuff, right? And I don't even know what my point is. I'm just rambling at this point.
It's tough things to think through sometimes. Any ways that we can be praying for you or for Brookfield CRC?
Oh yeah. So this summer will be a season of visioning for Brookfield CRC. I am kind of overseeing the youth group as well as the small groups that we have. We call them life groups. And I'm going to be doing a lot of visioning with the help from Pastor Peter here and other leaders, Paula and other people. So just, you could pray for me that God would give me the ability to discern and also wisdom, and that he would surround me with a good cloud of witnesses, all of that. I am excited for the challenge, but because some of the stuff that we already talked about in the youth culture and our culture in general, I kind of feel the weight of the challenge as well. So I am like in that little tension, excitement, and also the just fear of having to face the challenge. Yeah.
Well, we'll be in prayer for you and for the church as you do that work. Appreciate your time today, Young-Kwang.
I appreciate your time, Zach.